Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
I believe it's about character. It's about who you are, what do you stand for, integrity.
The game is about life, and it's about what you have to do to pick yourself up, to make yourself the best you can possibly be.
I got a scholarship to Nebraska. I had a 17-year career with the Vikings.
It is the ups and downs of the game, the turmoil. Those are all parts of life.
It is my duty, I believe, is to get that message out that you can live with integrity, but you have to have some God in your life to do that.
I've always wanted to be great at everything I've done. I've always been a competitor. I've always showed humility. I'm a team guy.
The values that it teaches you is A, diligence, B, perseverance. There are many more downs than there are ups.
This is such a spectacular game. It's a matter of one's dedication, one's belief in themselves as an individual to achieve greatness.
The game of football has taught me faith, it's taught me commitment, and it's taught me to have a tremendous resolve. And whatever I plan to do, I'm going to get it done.
You never dream, no matter how good you may be, that you'll ever be in the Hall of Fame.
Living with integrity, I certainly, honor the values of the Hall of Fame.
This is an honor bestowed not only on me, but for every teammate that I had. All of these people should be celebrated, not just me. It takes the moment from me to everyone but me.
Honor the heroes of the game.
Preserve its history.
Promote its values.
And celebrate excellence everywhere.
A consensus All-American at the University of Minnesota, Carl Eller was the Vikings' first-round draft pick in 1964. Number 81 proved worthy of his high draft status, becoming an integral part of Minnesota's famed Purple People Eaters. A member of the 1970s All-Decade team, Eller was elected to 6 Pro Bowls and named first or second team All-NFL NFC 7 times.
All right, and with that, we'd like to welcome everyone here live at Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, for our latest installment of our Heart of a Hall of Famer series, today featuring our guest speaker, Mr. Carl Eller. My name is Mike, and I'll be moderating today's program here from our studio in Canton. But first, let's start with our mission statement. You saw it there in the video, but just to reintegrate it, our mission statement is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values are really what we're going to focus in on today. And the values we promote here at the Hall are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And a number of other ones you saw there in the video, but mainly those 5 are what we're going to focus in on today. And we believe that those values, they don't just make you a great Hall of Fame football player. They make you a Hall of Fame student, a Hall of Fame son or daughter, a Hall of Fame coworker. They make you a Hall of Famer in everyday life. And we're excited to hear some of the stories and experiences from Mr. Eller's career, both on the field and off the field, and how we can relate those back to our own experiences and our own adversities and challenges that we may be facing. So we're excited for that today. Before we get started, I do have to get a couple of thank yous out there. First of all, we need to thank our friends at Extreme Networks for everything they do for us here at the Hall of Fame and for the game of football. Without them, this program really isn't possible. So thank you to them. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers, mainly for opening up your classrooms today and embracing the fact that those values I just mentioned are very valuable and paramount to the education of our youth. So thank you to you folks. lastly, we need to thank our students. I mean, this program is largely a Q&A between you and Mr. Eller. So we're excited to hear some of the research that you've done in his career, some of the questions you're going to ask of him today. And truly, without you guys asking questions, there is no program. So thank you to you. Last, before we get started, I just want to share with you a quick quote that I thought was kind of important in today's conversation. It was one that was shared at Mr. Eller's induction ceremony by his son. I'm going to look down and read here so I get it right. But Carl's son said, and I quote, "My dad does not live his life for himself, but rather an entire community revels in his accomplishments, just as a whole community shares in his defeats. His work and care for people within his community is undoubtedly one of his life works." I think that just really speaks to kind of what we're going to talk today about with those values of the game and how they impact life on and off the football field. So if we could right now, just all unmute our microphones, and I'll actually do that here from our studio, and give one loud Hall of Fame round of applause to our Hall of Famer, our gold jacket, Mr. Carl Eller. Thank you, guys. And then before I turn over to you, Mr. Eller, for any opening remarks, I just ask that if any of you have your phones or teachers have their phones out and you're taking pictures of today's program, please use our social media handles. It's going to be at ProFootballHOF, and you can use the hashtag HOFValues as part of that. So we'll make sure we have you guys do that. But if you could keep the phones on silent as well, that may help our conversation today. So with that, Mr. Eller, I'm going to turn the program over to you. If you have any opening remarks you'd like to share with our students to kind of get us rolling before we start our Q&A, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, was that over to me?
That's over to you, sir. Whatever remarks you have, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I've had a chance to meet some of these guys briefly here in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I'm talking to mostly the football players here. I've got a group of seniors up front. You know, they're fulfilling their duty, being right up front. That's great, being leaders. And of course, we've got the rest of the group here. Good-looking group of young men. And I was sharing with them some of my stories just about my high school days. And, you know, one of the things that I want to start off with is saying that one of the greatest values that I get from the Hall of Fame is the camaraderie. And what surprises me still today is the guys that you saw up on the video earlier. These were guys that made the Hall of Fame this year. And Mick Tingelhoff was part of that group, one of my teammates here. We got Richard back there. We got to educate him a little bit about who Tingelhoff is. But other than that, we're just here today to kind of celebrate these guys. And we know about their, achievements on the field. And as a Hall of Famer, I know because I played against these guys or played with these guys, and you know how good and how great they are and how fantastic, how difficult they are, But what you experience these guys have such a tremendous humility, and they have a tremendous respect for each other. And that is, I don't really feel that really anywhere else that I go. So it's an honor for me to be part of that group and to be amongst this group, because they are guys that I really idolize and look up to, and I really feel humbled to be in their presence, really. But they are such humble guys, and respectful, that it's amazing. That's what I think that people really don't know. And I think we talked earlier about football and football players or athletes in general. I think that people don't really understand what it means to be part of something that's really so big and so great, that you really can't understand it. And so when I talk to this group here, what I see is I see, Carl Eller 40, 50 years ago. And there's no way you can know what's at the other end of that journey or what's on the other side. But it's there. And it's and it was some of the stuff that we saw on the film and the video, is that you actually have to live these things to learn them. There's not a way to know beforehand, and that's where the character comes in. That's where the values come in, because you have to dedicate yourself to an idea of the character values that you express in the Hall of Fame. That's a commitment. Like you commit to a sport, or you commit to something. But when you commit to that, what that means is I'm going to follow its rules. I'm going to follow all of those rules. So if the coach says I got to, be home at 10 o'clock or in bed, or I got to pass my grades, or I got to study, or I got to eat or practice or do all those things, that's part of the rules. And you have to commit to that. But by committing to that, you really don't know. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of in the blind, but that's where the faith comes in. That's where the integrity comes in a sense that, like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be fair with you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you things that I've experienced, or that I know, or things that I believe in. So the things that I've dedicated my life to and made my commitments to, that's what I share with you. And so integrity is it's honesty in a way that you can, like, believe what I say. You can believe me. So if I say something to you today, you can come back to me whenever and say, Carl, this is what you said to me. This is what you told me. This is what I heard you say. And that will be the truth. And that's what I think that sports is about. Sports is about being honest and making a commitment and having that integrity to stick to it. And what these guys talk about is not through the good times, it's through the bad times, it's through the hard times. It's all the time. Once you commit to it, you're committed. And that means you're committed to not only your coach and your school and your teammates and all of those things that you stand for. And I want to say hi. I think Atkins High School is on here today. But boy, when I started Atkins High School, I had no idea where I was going. But that was like, I left, I graduated from Atkins High School in 1960. The fact that I can still have a relationship with those guys, and those guys accept me and say, hey, here's one of our graduates. Here's a guy that went to school here. That's fantastic. That's fantastic that they can say, hey, here's one of ours. Here's a guy that started here, and this is where he ended up. It's not the end by any means, but that's the journey that you take. And one of the greatest things that one of the greatest things that happened to me when I got inducted to the Hall of Fame was I talked to my old high school coach, Coach Warren. Ben Warren was the head coach, and Warren Odom was my line coach. And your coaches, along with all your grades and your career counselors and your teachers, when you get scholarship offers or scholarship opportunities, these guys have to speak for you. So just remember that. Just remember that, right? So your English teacher, French teacher, math teacher, all of these guys, they're going to have to speak for you. Because I talked to my coach and I had this question. I says, well, coach, man, you spoke for me. You recommended me is basically what I'm saying. And he had other guys he could have recommended too, because as I said, we were state champions. And I said, wow, you stuck your neck out for me. You had integrity to say, this is a good guy. Take a chance on him. And I asked him, and I said, well, why did you do that? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. You didn't have to do that. And he said, Carl, I believed in you. But I didn't just believe in you. Says, I believed in your family. Says, I knew you came from a good family. And I knew your parents were hardworking people. They were honest people, and they were decent people. And he said, I believe that if we recommended you to go to University of Minnesota, that you wouldn't embarrass us. Wow. They're not things you think about when you're a freshman or a senior. But those are the things that play a part in your life. It's your character. It's an amazing journey. It's an amazing journey because you just can't know. You just can't know where it's going to take you. But you have to be committed to it. You have to have faith in it. You have to believe in it. You have to believe in the leadership. You have to believe in things that people say to you. So surrounding yourself with people that have integrity, that have character, is so important. Because those are the things that last. Those are the things that carry you throughout. Those are the things that you'll have when you've hung up the cleats and put up the shoulder pads. It's going to be, what kind of person are you? You know, in this case, what kind of man are you? You know, are you somebody that I can trust? Are you somebody that I can, you know, put myself on the line for? You know, when we go into the battle against a tough team, are you going to be there? You're gonna block that guy. You're gonna tackle that guy. Can I count on you? That's what football is. That's what sports are. It's and another character is courage. Courage is like, hey man, I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna stand up. You can count on me. You know, I give you my word. Those are the kinds of things that I think that people look for in a person, you know, that they can commit to, that they can put their faith in. They read the introduction from my about my son, from my son. You know, my son is a great kid. His name is Regis. He scouts for the San Diego Chargers, and he lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. But I'm very proud of him. He's a great young man, and you know, as a young kid, you know, you have to process or progress through life to the point where the things that you've done really speak for themselves. And in the case of my son, and I have two daughters, I am very grateful and very blessed because I have like really extremely wonderful kids. And they have that same kind of the same kind of character. I mean, they're honest kids, they're good kids, they went to school, they were good. I've never had any problems with them. They've never given me any trouble. They're like great kids. I don't take credit for that, but all I'm saying is that as a parent, I'm looking at it from a different side now. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of like, was I a good dad? You know, did I teach my kids the things that I want them to learn? Will they be the parents to their kids? Isn't that crazy? I see my younger kids, my daughter, and then she has her kids, and what kind of a parent that she is. So it's passing down. It's all those kinds of things. So the things from the Hall of Fame is like you get to be in the Hall of Fame because you believe in these things, and they're all kind of wrapped up in character, you know. And so when it comes to, you know, being into the Hall of Fame, it starts from a tradition of excellence. The guys are the best. These guys are the best. These are guys that dedicated themselves, first of all, to do the work, you know, to be good in high school, you know, to get through high school, because it's not easy. It's not easy. I won't say there are challenges, but there are a lot of distractions, and you can get distracted into a lot of different areas. And so keeping your mind straight on where you're going and what you want to do and what you have to do, it's really important. So having that goal in mind, where I want to go, what I want to do, what kind of person I want to be, that's all part of it. You know, that what kind of person do I want to be? And basically what I'm saying is you want to be like those guys, because those guys they're great guys. They're not just great football players, they're great guys. And that's the reward of being a Hall of Famer. And it's a small group. It's only 100 and some guys, you know, that are still alive, less than a couple of hundred. But these are guys that have made that commitment. They paid the price to be where they are. And I'm just really happy to be part of that group, and really happy to be able to share that with you. And I think with that, I think I'm going to maybe open it up for questions or turn it back over to you guys or Mike. I'm not sure what we're going to do here, but
perfect. I'll take it back, Mr. Owen. Thank you for those remarks. Those were outstanding. You speak to that excellence and the number of guys in the Hall of Fame. We have currently 295 members of the Hall. Only 260 actually played the game. As you mentioned, there's only a little over, I think it's around 160 or so living members of the Hall of Fame. So it really is a elite group. When you think of, there's been over 28,000 guys to play the game professional football since it got started here in Canton, Ohio, 1920. So really that elite group. And you speak of that journey. One of the things we like to say at the Hall of Fame is that our Hall of Famers, they didn't fall out of bed great. It's a process, and it takes that commitment and that courage and that integrity and that dedication that Mr. Eller spoke of consistently along the way to reach that level. So I always say they didn't fall out of bed great. So I always just think that kind of really sums it up. So with that, like I said, we'll start off with some Q&A. So we'll start there at White Bear Lake. If we have a student there in front of Mr. Eller that can kick it off with our first question.
Hi, I'm James.
I remember you, James.
I wanted to ask you, how did your friends or your teammates on the team motivate you and change your character for the better?
How did my friends and teammates motivate me? As I said, we ended up being state champions my senior year. We were undefeated, which is the first year that ever been undefeated and state champions. So we had other guys on the team that were really good players. And I think that we supported each other. and again, like I said, was that we committed ourselves to being the best. I think some of those guys, and I mentioned to the group before we went on the air, is that I had a tough time as a freshman, and that's not atypical. I mean, I think most guys start out, having a rough time. I just think that's kind of a male thing, But, and so we had other guys on the team like that. We were like, just not really directed and motivated. But when we came together as a team, we all improved our character. We became better students. We became more involved in the classroom and decent guys. We were not the, misbehaviors kind of guys. But what happened though, for some of the guys, they weren't able to make enough of a change that they got the opportunities. But we really all fought for it. So some of the better players, even on the team, they ended up with some scholarships, but not to the kind of prestigious schools that some of us got to go. So even though they made the change, they went on with their lives, but they didn't go to like the big schools. They went to some of the other community colleges, but still their life changed and they got redirected. So it was really good for them. But I think what motivated me, my teammates, how they motivated was that we really stuck together and we were committed to being the best, including, off the field stuff. So thank you, James.
Very good. We'll go out to our next school, which is going to be Columbus City Prep. If you guys have a question there for our Hall of Famer.
Hey, somebody have a question?
Me.
Speak up nice and loud.
What made you so eager to keep playing football when you got hurt?
What made me so eager to keep playing football when I got hurt? Well, the thing is that once you get into football, was a career and it was it's my job, and so I wanted to keep playing. I was fortunate; I didn't have very many injuries as a football player. I had we got my thumb broke, and I had a slight knee problem, but those were not things to stop me from playing. I mean, were not the kind of injury that would keep me from playing. So I rehabilitated myself, through the, you guys are probably familiar with like Adrian Peterson, who's the Vikings now. He got injured and he had to really work hard to come back, and he's playing at a great level this year. And that's what you have to do as a football player. In order to continue playing, you have to rehabilitate yourself. So it's kind of like you get knocked down, but you get back up. So that's all. It's kind of part of the game. It's not for, well, most of the game is very, very, very safe. And as I said, I was very fortunate. I didn't have many injuries, but you have to get back up and continue to go. And one thing is that your teammates are kind of counting on you too. They want you back in there. So that's a big part of that. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go out to then the alma mater down there in Winston-Salem if we have a student there at Atkins with a question.
What were your motivators for you during your football career, and how do those motivators play into your character outside of school?
Can you repeat that again?
You may need to stand a little bit closer. Yeah.
What were your motivators for you during your football career, and how did those motivators play into your character outside of school?
Okay, well, I think that what happens is that somewhere you get in your mind that you want to be the best. I think some people do. I certainly know this is true for the Hall of Famers, and you work really hard at it. In order to be the best, you have to play against the best. That's one thing I like about football is that you have to. It's a proving ground, but as it was said earlier, you just don't fall out of bed. It's something that you have to work at. It's something that you have to work on. And so when I look at things, or when I look at challenges that I'm going to accept or face in life, I look at, okay, how can I accomplish what it is that I want to accomplish? What is it that I want to do? What's my goal? Do I want to, make a lot of money, or do I want to live well, or whatever it is I want to do? And then I say, well, how can I do that? And I use that in my life today, so that in most cases I've got to prepare for it, and I've got to make this sacrifice to get all the information, or the or whatever it is that I need, all of the assets or resources. I think it's just the idea, and I think it started way back when I started playing in high school, was as I wanted to be as good as I could possibly be. And another thing that came out of football, I think it's like giving your all. Don't bend the rules, don't cheat, don't try to go around, because you're not going to be the best that way, and ultimately it's going to catch up with you. And in playing, I always admired and respected the guys that I played against that were just like tough guys. They didn't like cheat you or hold you or do stuff like that. But it's continuing to be the best and wanting to be the best. Thank you.
Very good. We'll go back then to that live audience in front of you there, Mr. Eller, if we have another student from White Bear with a question.
In high school football, there's such sorry.
First of all, great shirt. Love the shirt.
In high school football, I feel such a unity and like a brotherhood, and like everyone's really close. It's almost like a home outside of home. How does that unity and brotherhood change from like college to NFL?
Actually, it doesn't change. That's what's great. Obviously, I went to college with one of my teammates from high school, and so we remained close. And then the other guys that were on the team, we remained close for a period of time. Eventually, those guys will fade, or you'll lose contact with them. But the same with the guys I went to the university with. Those are the guys I played with, and we stayed friends for a long time, and we had that unity for a long time. But the guys I played with in the NFL, I mean, we're still like family. We are very, very close, and I care a lot about those guys, and they're still my closest friends and very important friends to me. So those relationships don't actually end. They continue on, but like I say, some of them continue to get deeper and heavier, and so even though the Hall of Famers, I don't really know these guys as well because they're all played from different teams and stuff like that. But I'm getting to know those guys really good now, and we feel like a family. We feel like there's a closeness to us, and I think this is really an excellent question because it's making me think. And I think the brotherhood is the commitment to excellence. This is like when you find somebody that believes in what you believe in and has an identity with you, and you can go like, hey, I can trust that guy. I think you develop that kind of kinship with that person. So maybe it's an idea almost as much as the individual. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, we're going to go back into our school down there in Columbus, Ohio at Columbus City Prep. If we have another student ready there with a question for Mr. Eller.
Go ahead. How did your community help you in finding your path to the NFL?
How is my community helping me today?
And also, how did it help you from that transition to college and then to the NFL as well when you were kind of starting out in the game?
Boy, this is a good group here today, man. You're asking me some tough questions. Um, well, what was really important to me I was saying that I started high school football actually late, and so I was playing on the parks and recreation grounds, and in my community, everybody would go to the recreation center, and so we'd play makeup football, or I'd play basketball or baseball, or we'd do all of that stuff at the community center at the park. So having those facilities was really important because that's where you would see other guys and you go play and you do things in the community. So having those resources in the community were really important to me. But so I came to Minnesota, and at the University of Minnesota, the college is a great college and a great school. But then I lived in Minnesota, and I still live in Minnesota because I think it's really a great place to live. But in the community that I live in, it's a very diverse community, and people are very, very proud of where they live, and they're very proud of the community. And I'm just really happy to be part of that. I see, and again, I live near parks. I have recreation and lakes and stuff and all of that. So it's a good place to live. It's a good environment. I feel safe there actually, and I feel that I can do things that I can contribute to the community. I feel like I'm a good citizen of the community. So I really feel good about my community now, and I feel good about all the communities I've lived in prior to this, and particularly Winston-Salem, because that's where the foundation was. Like I said before, my coach, talked about my parents and things like that. And these are not easy things. I mean, when you talk, these are not easy things to go through because there really is. Your parents try to provide for you, like I'm saying, I try to provide for my kids and stuff like that. But you do need to be almost lucky, really, to be in the right environment where you have good schools, you have good recreation facilities, you have, good people, leaders in the community. Every community doesn't have that, and that's unfortunate. But in my case, I was really fortunate to have a lot of that, role models and a lot of examples in my community. And that's what I try to do. I try to be a role model in my community where I live. I have to tell you a story. And I grew up in Salem Hill, by the way, which is over by the University of North Carolina Art School, North Carolina School of the Arts. So I grew up there. But in Minnesota, I live actually in North Minneapolis, which is kind of in the news right now. But all the kids claim they cut my grass, and they never did. So the rumor is that everybody says whenever I meet a kid, and you grew up over in my community, I got a big yard. They go, I used to cut your grass. Not true. Not true. They never did. But no, there's a community is very important, and being part of that community is very important. Like belonging to it and feeling like you're part of that community, I think is extremely important.
And when we talk about community, Mr. There's always that sense of peer pressure, and peer pressure kind of gets a negative connotation sometimes in getting guys off the right path. But there is such a thing as positive peer pressure. And I know you spoke about your coach and your parents, but maybe when you talk about University of Minnesota and even in the early days with the Vikings, was there someone you looked to or kind of mentored you and kind of provide you with that positive peer pressure at that point in your life?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to have some example or some model or something. The problem is though that there's also those negative peer pressures or those negative models, and sometimes they are very attractive, and so it's like I don't know that there's a real defense against it unless you do have some support to kind of help you go the positive direction. Um, and I think my philosophy is the kids or young adults that make the positive choices, those are the people that should be rewarded. But it seems like society has decided, well, we'll reward or we'll bring attention to all the guys that do all the negative things. So you hear about all the bad stuff, you hear about all the negative stuff that people do, and you don't hear enough about the good stuff. And I just think that that's the wrong emphasis. By and large, I think our young people today are a great example of what we can expect in the future. And I don't do as much as I used to, but I talked to a young group recently because I was very curious. It's very different today than it was when I grew up. And of course, I grew up in what we call a Jim Crow South, where it was segregated. So for African Americans, those opportunities were not there, particularly in North Carolina. A lot of that has changed, and I know, and I see James here is African American. I see a couple other African Americans in the group, and I know there's some discussion about whether these opportunities are there or equal or fair or not, and I think that's a very, very, very difficult situation. But the thing is that you have to be able to afford yourself the opportunity to look at the community on a basis where what does the community offer me? And I think the community has to offer that opportunity for everyone. It has to be a community where everybody can thrive and is supported in that community. And you can't just single people out or not have them have that same kind of an opportunity. It's got to be there for everyone. And if the community doesn't do that, then I think the community itself is failing. And part of that, what I do and what I'm trying to do right now is I think, particularly guys like they're in the Hall of Famers, but other NFL players, I think that these guys are role models and can be role models. I don't think they are the role models that they were when I grew up, but I'm really working to try and restore that. Like I said earlier, like the guys that I know and talk with and communicate with in the Hall of Fame and the guys and my teammates, they are really good examples of citizenship. They're good examples of all those Hall of Fame values, and these are important, and you don't see those very much. And so I think that there's a lack of exposure to good role models. So that's what I think. But we should reward those people that do the right thing. I mean, guys think, well, hey, I was an A student, I was a good student, I never got in trouble, I never did anything wrong. That's great. I think that's fantastic. A guy goes, well, I got in trouble, I was a delinquent, I did this. Well, that's not the way to go. You know what I mean? That's not the way to go. And so I think we should reward those people that actually do the right things, that walk the walk and talk the talk. Thank you.
Let's go back out then to our folks there in Winston-Salem if we have a student ready with another question there.
What are some of the disadvantages you overcame leaving high school as a black male?
Well, one of the disadvantages I haven't overcome is I'm still a black male. So, and I approach things quite differently. I think that as an individual, opportunities present themselves dependent on the individual. And I think that society or whatever has a tendency to judge you prior to that opportunity. And so I believe that people judge people prior to getting to know them individually. And so I rely on my own self to convert that. So somebody that meets me, it's not that they may like me or may not like me. I don't know. I don't know if that person's going to like me or think I'm a cool guy or piece of, whatever. But the point is I have confidence in myself. I have confidence in myself that, I have the ability and the capability to take care of myself. I have a certain control over my world. I have a control over how I am, the things that I do, and how I present myself. And nobody really forces, their will on me. I mean, nobody can make me do something I don't want to do. So I do the things that I think that represent me as a person and represent me as the person I want to be. So, and I don't think that has anything to do with color. So that's kind of my attitude.
And we just actually got out of a meeting with our Mr. Eller, our president, David Baker, and one of the quotes he shared with us when we talk about character and the values here at the Hall of Fame is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. where I may get this a little bit wrong, so I apologize, but he dreamed that his children not be judged by the color of their skin, but the contents of their character. And I think as we talk about character today, that's one thing that we all can control is our commitment, our integrity, and how we present ourselves in the public eye. So I think that's apropos to what we're talking about there. So we can go back then.
Well. Let me just. I think that it's very easy to get drawn into the rhetoric, and I think it's very easy to have those, to get caught up in that stuff. But ultimately, what you have to do, in my opinion, is to take a stand for who you are, and you have to break away. And it doesn't mean that things out here change or that things are different, but you have to combat against those things. It's not like prejudice goes away or like, racism goes away. It's not like it's not there for me or that I don't live in this world. It's just that I deal with it in a different way, and part of my dealing with it is being who I am. And so I'm not. I'm affected by the world that I live in, obviously, and I'm not immune to those things, but I'm not controlled by them. I'm not controlled by them, and I think that's a big difference.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mr. I know we're getting into some deep discussion today, which isn't a bad thing. We got some great questions, so appreciate the students for the research they've done there. We'll go back out to the live audience there in front of you there at White Bear if we have another student with a question who's ready.
Is there anyone you looked up to for their character on or off the field when you were growing up playing football?
Yes, there were a couple of guys that I really look up to, and I think there was a young when I was a young man just getting into sports. One of the guys that I think impressed me most was a gentleman. His name was Norman King, and Norman was a track guy, and he went to the local college, Winston-Salem State Teachers College. And in history, they had great track teams. They had great relay teams, and they went to Olympics and stuff like that. And he was like one of those guys, and he would wear his athletic gear, and so he stood out in my community. He was very unique, and so he was attractive that way, in that he wasn't like any of these other guys that I saw. And this relates to what we were talking about just earlier, is that most of the guys were not inspirational. They were not like role models. They were not like people I wanted to be like. But he stood out, and like he was an athlete, and he's the one that first said, well, hey, I'm an athlete. I got a scholarship. I'm going to college, which was great, man. We're like, wow, somebody's going to college. That's fantastic. So these things come up, throughout your life at opportune times. But I think that was probably the biggest influence on me, and certainly in athletics, and that he was going to college and going to school and was going to make something out of himself. That was a big inspiration for me. Thank you.
All right, we'll go back out to our friends there in Columbus. If we have a student right there at Columbus City Prep with our next question.
Oh, it's Anthony's
All right, so was football your first intentional sport to play?
Can you repeat that again?
Was football your first intentional sport to play?
Was football my first sport?
Yeah, pretty much. Was your first? Was football kind of your first love, or your first sport that you really wanted to play and pursue?
I think I sort of I gravitated to football. I think the football suited me better. Like I tried other sports. I played baseball and basketball, but I really wasn't that good at those sports. And I tried baseball. And baseball is kind of fun when you're young, you know, they don't throw the ball so hard at you. But when those guys started throwing those curveballs, I mean, like, oh man, I don't want to play this sport, you know. Any baseball players and guys play baseball here? Yeah. Okay. So you get up to bat, you know, and they trick you because they throw this curveball and it's coming right at your eyeballs. You know, you go, oh man, so I couldn't stand in the plate to hit that. So that kind of ended my baseball career. But football, yeah, you could block and you could tackle, you could hit the guy and run and chase the guy, bring him down on the ground. I love that stuff. So football just ended up being more natural fitting for me. Thank you.
Let's go back out to Atkins High School there in North Carolina.
Okay, so what is the most important thing that you learned in your high school football days?
The most important thing that I learned in my high school football days was probably I had to do these other things. In order to play football, I had to be a good student and I had to be a good citizen. And I know that that's probably still true in high school today. If you don't have the grades, you can't play. I know it's true in college, but it was a real privilege really to play football. So if I didn't get good grades, I couldn't play. I couldn't be on the team. So it forced me to make some changes in the classroom. It's crazy how that works, but it's true. In order to play football, I had to become a good student. So that was probably the biggest change for me. It wasn't just I could go out and play football and everything was okay. You know, it was the other parts I had to do in order to play football.
Now we'll switch gears here a little bit, Mr. Eller. There's a question that was submitted via the software that we're using from folks that are just watching, they're not interacting. But they asked the question: would you trade your Hall of Fame ring for a Super Bowl ring? And you have you can kind of share your career path with the Super Bowls and whatnot if you choose.
Okay. I would not trade my Hall of Fame ring for a Super Bowl ring. No, I wouldn't do that because the Hall of Fame is an individual thing. It's not totally individual because you play with a team, obviously, but it is it's a more unique and more and a special group. We were, as the Minnesota Vikings, in the Super Bowl 4 times. And the thing about sports is that, you know, we were not cheated or we were not anything. I mean, you know, we played some good teams. We played the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 4, which was a great football team. You know, they had big guys, they had skill, players, they had talent, and they beat us in that game. It was a good game. I think the score was 16-9. So it wasn't like we were embarrassed in that game. And then we played the Miami Dolphin team, which was an undefeated team, which I think is certainly one of the greatest teams to play in the National Football League, and their record is still unparalleled. So we lost to them in a very similar score. We were very, very close, very competitive in that game. And then in Super Bowl IX or something like that, we played the Pittsburgh Steelers, which were a great team. That Franco Harris and their Bradshaw, Joe Green. They had a great team, man. They had great defense, the Steel Curtain, and they were very aggressive. We played them very, very close too. The game itself was very, very close. I think that they ended up breaking away late in the third quarter, and we lost that game. All of these games we lost by less than a touchdown. I think like 16-9 or I don't know. And then we played the Oakland Raiders, which was the last Super Bowl the Vikings were in. I think it was like 76, Super Bowl 11. And we probably were more suited against those guys than the other teams, and probably matched up with them very well. But I don't think that was one of our better days and one of our better games. And things like that happen. It's not a record to not be proud of, because I am. The opportunity to play in the Super Bowl 4 times is great, and it's a great achievement. But what I think it says more than anything is that we did not turn away. We were not defeated by defeat. Because we did not win, did not discourage us from going back and trying again. And I think that motivated us more than anything. So we had a long streak, a long run that lasted about 10 years. We were very dominant in the National Football League. And so for a period of about 10 years, particularly the Vikings and our front four, the Purple People Eaters, we kind of dominated the league for a long period of time. We just didn't get the Super Bowl ring, but I still think that was a great, great record and a great achievement, and one that I'm very, very proud of.
We have then, Mr. Eller, about 3 to 4 minutes left in our program. So at this point, I'll let you have any closing remarks, whether it's something that you just want to reiterate that we talked about today, or if there's something that we didn't touch on that you were hoping to talk about. I'll let you kind of close it out with any final thoughts.
Well, I think we've talked about a lot of things here. We talked about the character, which is respect, commitment, integrity, courage, and excellence. And excellence is kind of an idea. That's being a better you, being the best you can be. Nobody really knows what that is. You don't even know what that is at this point. But it's something that you have inside you that says, I'm going to be the best that I can be in whatever I do, whether it's football or whether it's being a big brother or a little brother or, a student or whatever. But that stuff carries with you. And I think what you've heard from me today is that history, that journey that began in high school is still very much a part of my life. So it's not like you can be, do what you want to do here today and that it's not going to follow you. That's really important. And the thing that I want to say is I'm actually going to be doing a course at the University of Minnesota. It's called Game Plan 2. And it's something I've worked on for a long, long time to get that. And so for me, that's kind of another crowning achievement, in my life, and something I'm looking forward to. And I think the one thing for athletes is that I played with Alan Page, who's a Supreme Court justice, and I think they do get a bad knock or a bad rap that they don't have the other characteristics that go along with some of the other students and stuff like that, and I still hear that. But you guys are leaders, and you're leaders because of the way you choose to live your life, and that commitment, I think, represents a lot, and it says a lot. So sports in general will be on your back. How people look at sports, how people look at athletes in the future is going to be on you. We are part of a prior generation. We've kind of built up that. So my reputation, our reputation is going to be on your backs. What football becomes and what football is is going to be up to you guys, and it's going to be what you make it. So I think we're in good hands, but it's a big responsibility. Thank you very much.
Perfect, and thank you, Mr. That was fantastic. I know I took a lot away from. I have some notes here I took during our program. I'm hoping some of the students did so as well. So I want to thank you for your time, sir, and also from David Baker, Joe Horgan, George Veras, all of our executive staff on down. We want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this program today. I would like to apologize for the Packers and the Bears stuff I have behind me, but I do have our Vikings helmet down there in the corner. So. Not entirely biased here.
That's enough. We don't need any more. Okay. Thank you very much.
For all of our schools, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Atkins High School in Columbus. Great. You got a great group here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. I know the folks there at White Bear will take great care of you as we log off here. So thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you in Canton sometime.
Thank you.